One thing that came up during the Diablo Immortal debacle was the entitled gamer. There were talks about the entitled gamers harassing and bullying those who made Diablo Immortal, and examples of how this was done before and is a common phenomenon. The way it was put to me was that the whole outrage around the game was that most, if not everyone, were just screaming about it. I think that there is no reason for any of that kind of behavior in this instant. And call me frank, but I think the majority of the outcry was the memosphere creating satire out of disappointment. And no wonder expectations of a mobile game did not match the message Blizzard came forth with. But let's take a closer look at what's going on. There are some merit to mapping out the dimensions of feelings and actions taken during this kind of marketing flop. Actually, it's more than one dimension. But let's stick with one first, and maybe we can find this entitled gamer I've been hearing about. On a dimension, we'll have to start at the far end. Our first persona is Jack the Red-Headed Butcher, who doesn't play any games at all. This person do not care the least bit about Diablo Immortal. He goes all the way on the 0 point care end of the dimension. Someone who cares a little bit more is Christian the Alligator Wrestler. He plays Diablo 3 on console and would like to have seen the new one reach his gator box. But he's mostly busy wrestling alligators, so it's not hugely important for him. Third, we have Bill the McDonald's manager. He's bummed out that it did not come to PC or console, since he winds down playing video games after a long day of work. But will probably play it on the toilet. Tina the streamer is really disappointed that Diablo Immortal is going to have mobile quality, and that she won't be able to stream it. She ridicules Blizzard to voice her disappointment and retweets some "You all have phones" memes. Finally, we have Groll, the entitled gamer. This guy bought every collector's editions of Diablo and spends most of his gaming time on Diablo 3. His disappointment cannot be understated. We'll look at how he reacts later. So now we have our dimensions with the two extremes. Now we can look at the likely distribution of fans on this dimension. No likelihood it's going to be a bell curve with tail ends on the extremes. The tail on the right hand of the chart, where people care the most, will have a longer tail, since it's not possible to care less than not at all. This is similar to households' earnings, where they cannot earn less than $0, but there's no upper limit to how much you can earn. That means that the vast majority of fans are going to be centered around Bill the McDonald's manager. The further you move out on the extremes, the less people will be counted among them. Each persona we created earlier represents a deviation away from the majority. Already, we can assume that the vast amount of core fans are not the entitled gamer. It can be argued that the bell curve should be placed further on the right, thus implying that there is a higher degree of entitled gamers. While this is possible, I see no reason or data for why it's likely, and most arguments go in circles about why it should be. In sum, Blizzard's core fans are likely to be normally distributed over a dimension of care for the franchise. Least likely are core fans who care the least and the most. While there are more core fans who lie on the extreme caring side than on the extreme not caring side, there will be more people who are balanced in the middle. Now we know the care dimension. There is one more dimension we should really look at. That is the dimension that measures how fans react to the disappointment. And it crosses the care dimension vertically. Let's assume that one tail end is negative response, and the other is satirizing response to the disappointment in Diablo Immortal. So on one extreme we're going to have a comedy star. This is someone who prints out satire to show their disappointment to the game that even catches the eye of Blizzard's blind marketing team. On the other hand of the dimension, we have someone who harasses and lashes out at Blizzard for creating a mobile game. In the middle are those who don't act in either direction and does nothing, or just consumes the content on each side of the dimension. But between the middle and the extreme lies every grade of interaction. A mild negative reaction would be disliking Diablo's trailer. A mild satirizing reaction would be liking a meme about the trailer. A strong negative reaction would be to leave a comment expressing disappointment or even anger. A stronger satirized reaction would be retweeting a meme, or maybe even creating one. You can see how it's possible to exist at multiple places of the dimension at the same time. But the distribution we laid out earlier applies to this dimension as well. That is, most are saturated around the middle, where they just consume the content on each side, or does nothing. But let's take a look at how this interacts with the care dimension we created earlier. We can safely assume that everyone who is Jack, the red-headed butcher, who doesn't care, is not going to take any form of action on the reaction dimension. But as we move forwards, towards the right of the dimension, stronger reactions on each side becomes possible. It's very unlikely that personas like Bill or Tina will go all the way out on the extremes of the reaction dimension, since they don't care enough. It's more likely that extremes are reserved for personas like Groll. It's still not likely that Groll will act in a manner befitting an entitled gamer and lash out at Blizzard. Those reactions lie on the tail end of both distributions. People who are at this tail end of the negative side of the distribution for a Groll will be a very small margin of the whole fanbase. If we assume that it's a normal distribution on both dimensions, and that we have to move 2 standard deviations, which is personas, out to find the extremes, then it's less than 0.1% of the fanbase that acts so horrendously bad. I should caveat this by saying that it's just an estimation and that more psychological research is needed. But I would urge psychologists to look into more pressing matters, like the correlation between depression and social media use. In sum, the vast majority of core fans are not going to take extreme action in either direction, satire or negative. Most negative actions are also entirely outside the personas of an entitled gamer. This leaves the entitled gamer to be the actions of a small minority. So calling most of the actions taken after the epic marketing failure that was Diablo Immortal the result of gamers being entitled is not the correct position to take. Also, wanting others to shut up when they dislike something that you like is also not the correct position to take. Negative data is also data, and Blizzard needs to know when they make incorrect marketing decisions, and showing disappointment is the most effective and meaningful way of doing this. Calling someone an entitled gamer for voicing their disappointment is not an argument, it's a slur. I've been Frank. Farewell.